Welcome back to Random History. I'm your navigator as we explore the little known events and people that make history such an amazing subject. The events I delve into are probably not the ones you learned about in school. These are the ones that when you do hear about them, you're likely to think they could not possibly be real. But they are. For Halloween, I thought I'd change things up a little bit. Halloween has its origins in ancient Celtic festivals, particularly Samhain, celebrated over 2,000 years ago in what is now Ireland, the UK, and northern France. Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, a time when the Celts believed that the boundary between the living and the dead blurred, allowing spirits to roam the earth. To ward off these spirits, people would light bonfires and wear costumes, often made of animal skins, to disguise themselves from these harmful spirits. As Christianity spread across Europe, some Christian festivals were moved to coincide with some local traditions. By the 9th century, November 1st became All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Day. And October 31st is the eve of the celebration, and so it was called All Hallows' Eve, eventually shortened to Halloween. In the 19th century, Irish and Scottish immigrants brought the Halloween traditions to the United States, where it evolved into a more community-centered holiday. Over time, the focus shifted from warding off spirits to activities like trick-or-treating, costume parties, and pumpkin carving. Today, Halloween is a secular, commercialized event, particularly in North America, where millions celebrate with costumes, decorations, and candy, while retaining echoes of its ancient and spiritual roots. After all, in the Catholic tradition, November 1st is still All Saints' Day. Late in the 19th century, Halloween became associated with the macabre and the supernatural. It's not surprising that the master of this genre of literature, Edgar Allan Poe, became very closely associated with Halloween as well. For Halloween, I thought I would tell his story. Edgar Allan Poe, often regarded as one of the most significant figures in American literature, was a master of the macabre, a pioneer of modern detective fiction, and a poet of deep melancholy. Born in 1809, Poe's life was marred by personal tragedy and instability, but these difficulties fueled the dark brilliance of his writing. Over the course of his brief life, Poe produced a remarkable body of work, including poems, short stories, critical essays, all of which have continued to captivate and influence readers, writers, and scholars alike. His untimely and mysterious death in 1849 remains a topic of fascination and speculation. Edgar Allan Poe was born on 19 January 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts, to actors David and Elizabeth Poe. His father abandoned the family, and his mother died of tuberculosis when he was only 3 years old. Orphaned, Poe was taken in by John Allen, a wealthy tobacco merchant, and his wife Frances in Richmond, Virginia. Though never formally adopted, Poe took Allen's name as his middle name, symbolizing his complex relationship with his foster father. Poe received a good education in private schools and later attended the University of Virginia in 1826. However, his time at the university was fraught with financial difficulties due to Allen's refusal to provide him with sufficient funds. Poe turned to gambling to make up the shortfall, but this only worsened his financial woes, and he eventually dropped out. The strain on his relationship with John Allen grew, and Poe left the Allen household. In 1827, Poe enlisted in the United States Army under the alias Edgar A. Perry, likely to escape his dire financial situation. While serving, he published his first collection of poems, Tamerlane and Other Poems, though it attracted very little attention. After 2 years of service in the military, Poe sought an early discharge, which John Allen eventually helped him secure. Following his discharge, Poe sought an appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, which, again, Allen helped facilitate. However, Poe's time at West Point was short-lived. He deliberately neglected his duties in order to be expelled. as he had grown disillusioned with military life. Upon leaving West Point in 1831, Poe moved to Baltimore to live with his aunt, Maria Clem, and her daughter, Virginia. It was during this time that he began to focus more seriously on his writing, publishing stories in local newspapers and magazines. In 1833, Poe gained recognition when his short story, MS Found in a Bottle, won a literary contest sponsored by the Baltimore Saturday Visitor. In 1835, Poe moved to Richmond, where he secured a position as an editor at the Southern Literary Messenger. That same year, he secretly married his cousin, Virginia Clem, who was just 13 years old at the time. Despite the unconventional nature of their union, by all accounts, Poe and Virginia had a very close and affectionate relationship. As an editor, Poe's sharp literary criticism earned him a reputation, and he continued to publish short stories and poems of his own. However, his struggles with alcoholism and temperamental behavior often led to conflicts with his employers, and he frequently found himself moving from one job to the next. Despite these difficulties, Poe began to experience increasing success with his writing. His short stories, such as Ligeia, The Fall of the House of Usher, and The Murders in the Rue Morgue, showcased his ability to blend Gothic horror with psychological insight and innovative narrative techniques. It was Poe's 1845 publication of The Raven that catapulted him to national fame. The poem, with its melancholic tone and haunting refrain of "Nevermore," became immensely popular and established Poe as a master of poetic form. The poem's themes of lost love and despair reflected Poe's personal experiences and resonated deeply with readers, making him one of the most well-known literary figures of his time. Poe's literary contributions span various genres, including poetry, short fiction, and literary criticism. As a poet, Poe is known for his rhythmic and musical verse, often exploring themes of death, beauty, and the supernatural. In addition to The Raven, his notable poems include Annabel Lee, The Bells, and The Conqueror Worm. Poe is also widely regarded as a pioneer of the modern detective story. His creation of C. Auguste Dupin, the detective featured in The Murders in the Rue Morgue, laid the groundwork for the genre that would later be popularized by Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes. Dupin, with his logical and analytical mind, served as a model for many later fictional detectives. Additionally, Poe's Gothic fiction, such as The Telltale Heart or The Black Cat, is often noted for its psychological depth, as Poe explored the darker aspects of the human mind. These stories delve into themes of guilt, paranoia, and madness, and are recognized for their innovative narrative techniques, including the unreliable narrator and the use of detailed, vivid imagery to evoke fear and dread. As a critic, Poe advocated for the importance of aesthetic unity in literature and was particularly interested in the effect a work of art had on its audience. His critical essays, such as The Philosophy of Composition, provided insight into his own creative process and articulated his views on what made a work effective. Poe's personal life was plagued by financial instability, professional frustrations, and ongoing struggles with alcohol. His marriage to Virginia, though reportedly happy, was also marked by hardship. In 1842, Virginia began to show signs of tuberculosis, a disease that had already claimed Poe's mother and foster mother. Her prolonged illness took a severe emotional toll on Poe, and his drinking became more erratic during this period. Virginia's death in 1847 was a devastating blow to Poe. In the years following her passing, his mental and physical health deteriorated further, and his writing took on an even darker, more despairing tone. Many of his later works, including the poem Ululume and the essay Eureka, reflected his deepening preoccupation with death and the afterlife. Edgar Allan Poe's death remains one of the great mysteries in literary history. On 3 October 1849, Poe was found in a delirious state on the streets of Baltimore, wearing clothes that were not his own. He was taken to Washington College Hospital, where he drifted in and out of consciousness for several days, repeatedly calling out the name Reynolds, though the identity of this person remains unknown. Poe died on 7 October 1849 at the age of 40. The cause of Poe's death is the subject of much speculation. Contemporary accounts listed congestion of the brain as the cause. That was a term that was often used to describe alcohol-related deaths. However, modern theories range from rabies to tuberculosis, epilepsy, or even foul play. The exact circumstances of his death remain unresolved, adding another layer of mystery to Poe's already enigmatic life. Edgar Allan Poe's contributions to American literature cannot be overstated. His innovative use of language, his exploration of the human psyche, and his creation of new literary forms have left an indelible mark on subsequent generations of writers and readers. His work continues to be studied, analyzed, and celebrated for its complexity, emotional depth, and timeless appeal. Today, Poe is recognized not only as a master of Gothic fiction, but also as one of the most important and influential figures in American literary history. As I mentioned earlier, the work that catapulted Poe to worldwide acclaim was his poem, The Raven. A quick internet search will bring thousands of hits on this remarkable work. It has been adapted into a movie, recited by some of the most amazing voices: Vincent Price, James Earl Jones, and my favorite, Christopher Lee. It was even made into a Halloween episode of The Simpsons. If you've never heard one of these performances, you owe it to yourself to check them out. I will attempt to do it justice here.
The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late night visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, nothing more. Back into my chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not an instant stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched upon my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is, on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled by the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his psalms one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat, engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and nepenthe, from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempest sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home of horror haunted, tell me, truly I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie that soul has spoken. Leave thy loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak out of my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
This concludes our special Halloween edition of Random History. I hope you enjoyed listening, and as always, please tune in to our future episodes. If you'd like to view a transcript or the sources for today's episode, click on the link in the description. You can use the same link, if you'd like, to suggest a topic for future episodes. I'd also like to thank Argos Media for producing Random History, and, as always, my wife for inspiring me. Until next time, make some history of your own. Navigator out.